After the destruction of 2 Russian naval ships in the harbor of Sevastopol on occupied Crimea, Russia is now preparing to move its naval assets as far away from the Ukrainian missiles as possible. This and more in this situation report about the Ukrainian war. Hello and welcome. We start with the front line in the northeast, here close to Kupiansk. The Russians were attacking around Kupiansk again along this front line. I cannot confirm that they had any success with this. They did have success though in the past days here close to Makivka, which is down here. The Russians advanced over 2 kilometers in the direction of the town here. Just to give you an overview, this is the Seversky Donetsk, and they advanced in this direction. We have a Ukrainian military blogger here just confirming additional advances over the last few hours. So the Russians are getting closer and closer to Makivka and have advanced significantly in the terms of meters. The whole area itself is probably not the most important point if they can be stopped in front of Makivka, and overall it's not of strategic importance, but in comparison to the Ukrainian advances in the south, it's obviously of significance if the Russian side advances by more than 2 kilometers. Further south, around Bakhmut, the fighting is continuing. The Ukrainians claim that they had successes close to Andriivka. Here, this is Bakhmut. I cannot confirm it. I have not found any source showing me that the Ukrainian side has actually advanced there. The Ukrainians claim that they had around Bakhmut 100 to 300 meters of advances, so probably somewhere in the north as well as in the south. I cannot confirm it. It seems that the railroad line that is moving along here is still the front line, is still the center of the front line. Obviously, it doesn't offer any cover when you have to cross the tracks, so it's ideal to build a defensive line behind it, as the enemy has to fully expose himself while crossing over it, and so far the Ukrainian side has not been successful in permanently crossing the railroad bridge here, the railroad line here. Further south in Avdiivka, the Russians had minor successes here at Krasnohorivka. They advanced somewhat in this area here. Further south, again, some minor Russian successes in Marinka seem to have happened, and they have attacked at Novomikhailivka. The Ukrainians attacked towards Mikilske, here east of Vuhledar, and there were a series of Ukrainian attacks south of Urushaine, as well as to the west of Staromayorsk, so in this area. The Russians also report about a number of attacks by the Ukrainians on Priutne. In neither case do I find any evidence of Ukrainian successes that they had some advances. This is a little bit different further west, but first we have additional Russian advance here at let me just check it. Marfopil here, in the direction of Huliapole. The Russians were able to advance somewhat in that direction. The Ukrainians themselves focus still south of Orikhiv and have managed to advance somewhat down the wooden lines here west of Verbove in this area. They are trying to bypass Verbove to avoid fighting through the town, and they have had some successes, but it's minor. The fighting is also continuing northeast of Novoprokopivka in this area. We have Ukrainian attacks followed by Russian counterattacks. I cannot document any change along the front line. This is somewhat different though further west here at Kopani. The Ukrainians try to push the Russians away. We see the fortification lines here. They have liberated Robotine a while ago, but they need to widen that breach into the Russian front line if they want to be able to push further south, to not basically create a encirclement for the Russians to allow the Russians to encircle them easily. They need to widen the gap into the Russian front line, meaning they need to push east here and to the west here. And in the direction of Kopani, they had additional attacks in the past few days, and we have the pro-Russian military blogger Wargonzo confirming this. With artillery support, they advanced towards Kopani. There is progress. So we know that they have had some successes in this area, with the Russians confirming it. It is a fact, but we do not know the extent. The fighting is also continuing here along the Dnipro. And here Riba is concerned again that the Ukrainian positions that have crossed the main body of the Dnipro River and have built some fortifications, some positions on the islands along the Dnipro, that they will be used for further advances. It's important here to say that while the Ukrainians have now settled themselves properly on the southern side of the Dnipro, on the left bank of the Dnipro, that they have liberated some territory here, there is still a body of water between them and the rest of the Russians, so they will not be able to advance without any problem further south or southeast, further towards the Crimean Peninsula. The Riba is concerned, though, that this might mean that this is a preparation for an attack, that it's visible. So while the Ukrainians do not cross the Dnipro yet, at least Riba, the pro-Russian military blogger, sees the preparation for further attacks. They mention that drone attacks have intensified, artillery fire has intensified, and the counter-battery fire has also intensified in this area. Riba is accordingly still voicing their concern that there will be additional attacks, that there might be a serious river crossing over the Dnipro fairly soon. When we talk about the developments along the front line in general, we see no significant change along the front line, but when it comes to territory, the Russians clearly had the upper hand in the past week. While the Ukrainians have gained some ground south of Orikhiv, the Russians have attacked at less fortified positions, and this is one of the reasons while they have had more success. They attacked where the Ukrainians haven't concentrated themselves, whereas the Ukrainians basically try to break head with their head right through the wall of the Russian fortifications here in the south. There are reports of the Ukrainians sending additional reinforcements now towards the Luhansk front to stop the Russians from further advancing, but in total distance covered, the Russians clearly had the upper hand, but that's not all that matters in this war, so it has to be put in some perspective. The satellite pictures have appeared from Donetsk and Luhansk showing an extension of the training facilities by the Russians there. There are either a sign of a pending second mobilization wave, or of the Russians expecting to recruit more personnel, or of their intent to train personnel they have recruited further. In any ways, it shows that the Ukrainians will have a tougher fight ahead them than as of right now, as the need for more training facilities would either lead to the expectation of more personnel in the future or better trained personnel in the future. In the political sphere, we had Putin claim that splinters, that shrapnel from hand grenades were found in the bodies of the persons on board of Prigozhin's plane. According to that, the explosion was on board and it was done by a hand grenade. The accusation is that they might have been high on drugs or on alcohol and played around with hand grenades, accidentally blowing themselves up. While he said that there wasn't a toxicological test on the bodies of the slain personnel on board of the plane, he would have preferred it, and he mentioned that supposedly 5 kilograms of cocaine were found when Prigozhin's premises were raided a couple of months ago. Overall, so we have the Russians now, the Russian government claiming that Prigozhin blew himself up. Russian military bloggers that are considered to be pro-Wagner are outraged about this, as it's being seen as an attempt to basically diminish the achievements of Prigozhin, to turn him into a moron who is too stupid to use hand grenades properly, blowing himself up with it. But it shows that the Russian government is now apparently presenting a guilty party for this event. We have news, though, too, that Russia has signed an agreement with the separatist government of Abkhazia. Abkhazia is down here. It's a region of Georgia that has broken away from the control of the central government with the help of Russian military. It's basically Russian occupied. It has declared its independence, and Russia has recognized that independence, but in international norms and by almost every nation worldwide, this is an integral part of Georgia. And Russia has now signed an agreement with this separatist government here for setting up a naval base down here at Okhamchire. This is interesting in this regard that the region isn't ideally suited for it. It's an occupied territory. The geology there does not permit, except with intensive effort in production and in setting up facilities, to create a bigger harbor. So it's not well suited for a big naval base, but still it was signed up. And if we look at the map, it's clear why it's done. This is the most furthest distance from the Ukrainian controlled parts of Ukraine that the Russians can find that is still within the Black Sea. So they seem to have chosen like the town furthest away where they could possibly set up a naval base, showing how important the Ukrainian strikes on the Russian naval fleet, on the Russian Black Sea fleet, have been in the past, especially significant in regard to the fact that the Ukrainian Navy is more or less no longer existent and is still able to force the Russians to move away their ships this far away. We have news about some reports about the massive attack, the terrorist attack on Israel, where some Russian propagandists claim that it was weapons delivered to Ukraine that have now been used by Hamas. There is no evidence whatsoever of this claim even being remotely true, as it's currently being spread around by the usual suspects. I felt the need to mention it, that this is pure fantasy, at least as of now. And finally, we have the news that Ramzan Kadyrov has made his son Adam a hero of the Chechen Republic. Before that, just a few days ago, he was filmed. He published a video of Adam Kadyrov beating up a prisoner, a detained person, basically mocking the rule of law inside of Russia. This has led to serious criticism by the Human Rights Council inside of Russia, and Kadyrov claimed that in case there is a sentencing, then obviously Adam will accept it, but basically Adam is a good boy, and now he has made him a hero of the Chechen Republic to basically underscore this prior verdict about his own son. Finally, about Armenia, we have some news too. It's being reported that Pashinyan has now signed a document accepting officially with signature the territorial integrity of Azerbaijan, including Nagorno-Karabakh. This showing that Nagorno-Karabakh is no longer in existence, and the government in exile of Nagorno-Karabakh has now declared that they will dissolve on the 1st of January next year. So Nagorno-Karabakh is over. Azerbaijan, and that's the interesting part, it's not known that Azerbaijan has done the same about Armenia. I at least have not found a report that in return Azerbaijan has said, of course, so as Armenia says, our territory is sacred, so is theirs. Azerbaijan is still asking for the Sarıgesur corridor, which they want to establish here in the south to connect Nakhchivan with the main body of Azerbaijan through Armenian territory, where the fear is that they might actually conquer it militarily and then annex it, basically cutting off Armenia from Iran and taking some of its territory. That was it from me for now. If you enjoyed this situation report, please hit the thumbs up button. It really helps with the algorithm. If you are new here, I would like to invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss future updates, and leave a comment in the comment section what you think about the Russian redeploying their fleet, or at least preparing to redeploy their fleet as far away as possible from the Ukrainian side. This channel is only possible because of the support of viewers like you. If you like to support the channel, you can do so by the means in the description. Thank you very much to everyone already supporting this channel. And that's it from me for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back.